Thursday, March 26, 2026, and we're rolling about 4 a.m. in downtown Houston, fourth largest city in the nation, and want to do another video where I use a criminal case to help describe a cautionary tale to where we're not throwing shade on anyone in it. We are, especially if it's a male victim or anything, we are using it to honor that person. And if that person would have made maybe some different choices or had different knowledge, more knowledge, and what I say is understand women better, understand how relationship with women should be, and what they should expect and not expect, and just stuff like that, stuff to watch out for. That's why we're doing this stuff. And we can see the grave consequences that happen when you might, in my opinion, you lack that knowledge. And you know, in some of these cases, well, in all these cases, men have lost their lives because of this. And this is just my opinion. You know, so, but I was just real quickly was listening to another video where a guy was talking about modern women and how they date toxic men and they meet these men in all kinds of places. And, you know, it's one of these kind of, you know, hate on women thing, and which I don't like. And, you know, he said, then they find a solid man, and that man has to hear about all their traumas. And, you know, that's a defeatist attitude. So what he's basically describing is the toxic men that women have dated is usually the alpha seed. And the solid man he's describing is the beta male simp that thinks that, and a lot of this is the beta male simps think that they are better than the alpha seeds. Because a lot of times alpha seeds, you know, they might not have the most money. They might not have the most status in life. They might not have the best education. But what they do have is an understanding of how women work. And they do have women's attraction. And in my opinion, they do get the best of women. And a lot of the beta males, and you know, growing up when I was, because I've been a beta male when I was growing up, when I didn't know any better until I learned all this stuff, because I'm 50 now. But you know, you get jealous. Look at that guy. You know, he's got nothing. You know, he's a loser. You know, that's what you say, right? That's why I know this stuff. And but looking back, he was a loser to me, and maybe a loser to my friends, but he was not a loser to that girl. So women are not being forced to be with these men. So you know, if they're not choosing you, there's probably a reason. So this is what we're doing. We're trying to figure it out. So and I said that you need to be the alpha seed side of their dual mating strategy, and not the beta provider side of dual mating strategy, because I think women give their best to the alpha seed. What was the quote? It is a woman would rather share an alpha than be with a faithful beta. That's a Pook quote, which is true. I mean, it's true. Women will say all day long, that's not true, because they don't want to share, but they will. Trust me. Why do you think they have the Facebook "Are we dating the same man" site? I mean, you know, isn't it quite obvious? So, but anyway, yeah. So, moving right along. Yeah. So, you know, women, you know, you know, they lust after, and they are physically attracted. They are physically stimulated by the alpha seed. And one of my guys I shout out to a lot is Rollo Tomasi. He was one of the guys that got me on the journey back in pretty much about 2018. I became really interested in his stuff, and I saw Rich Cooper doing a thing on his book during the 21 convention. And I was like, he's talked about Rollo. I got the book, and I mean, it did change my life. You know, I put a lot of things together. Now, you know, you grow from there. It's not the only book, you know, that's out there. There's, you know, Atomic Attraction. There's Evolution of Desire. You know, I say the 48 Laws of Power. um, in this space. Practical Female Psychology. I mean, you can key up Why Women Have Sex by Dr. David Buss. I mean, there's just, a plethora of things that you can look at and in the space. So, one of the first lines in Rollo's book is, why do my eyes hurt? Well, you've never used them before. So that's what we're doing. We're opening people's eyes, because sometimes you go, it's right in front of your face. It's right in front of your face why you're not succeeding. And so, you gotta, sometimes you can be looking right at something. And because you're ignorant of, and again, ignorance is not a bad word. It means you don't know. You're ignorant of the fact of why you're not succeeding, like maybe with relationships. So, but the reason I stress so hard, and I'll get into the criminal case, the reason I stress so hard alpha seed instead of beta need is because I don't believe the game, I talk about game or whatever with women or relationship with women, it's going to get any easier. It won't. Like I said, we can wish it were different. It won't be different. And I think it'll only get harder. And because, we can all wish that feminism didn't exist, and, all this stuff, but, and modern women they need to change. They're not going to. You can go ahead and everybody on that, in that boat, they can go ahead and set sail and roll off the cliff there, because that's what in my opinion, that's what they'll do. And if you want to be on the winning team, you figure out what's going on and you figure out the winning strategy and employ that, because I think those of us who love women, and want to have good relationships with women, will be learning how to be more competitive. And yes, you need to be more competitive. So how do you be more competitive? And in my opinion, you need to be the alpha seed, which means get jacked, go to the gym, get jacked as you can. I do think getting in the best shape as you can is definitely going to be a must in the future, and even now, whatever. And I think that, in the mindset, obviously you have to have the mindset, discover, look inside yourself. In the 33 Strategies of War, another great book, it says before you can declare war on others, you have to declare war on yourself. Figure out what insecurities, and insecurities is where we tend to screw up with women, because we have an insecurity about something, and they'll find what our insecurity is, or we'll be displaying it, we don't even know it. That happens so many times when I listen to some of these guys that do these call-in shows or whatever, and they're complaining about maybe a date they had or whatever, and you can hear it was an insecurity that they had. So, usually it's something inside you that ruined, the interactions a lot of times, right? For example, maybe, when I was more simpish when I first started this journey of dating in 2018. I did a lot of dating, and I would complain. I've said this before. I would complain, oh, she did this and she did that. And, well, it was because I was beating around the bush. I didn't have the balls to say, hey, I dig you. You're hot. My house is over here. If you want to go over there and smash, it's cool. And, after a while, that's obviously not every time, but that was working. Every once in a while, I would employ that. And then when I started saying my truth, it was like, wow, if I just wouldn't be, insecure that she's going to say no, or didn't have an ego problem where, my ego was shattered when a woman said no, I had to fight that within myself, right? That's my problem, not her problem, right? So anyway, so what case are we talking about tonight? Oh, one last thing. Rollo Tomasi, that's why I brought him up. He had a good, it's a while ago, it's a podcast, and it was on hookup culture. And Rollo, I believe, he had the right idea when he said, hookup culture really doesn't exist. It's something that's made up. If you call something a culture, people accept it. They accept the behavior. Oh, it's a culture. It's a culture of debauchery. Oh, yes, it's culture, right? So hookup culture is actually, women call it hookup culture because if you look at the stats and you look around you, your personal experience, And a lot of guys ain't be hooking up. A lot of guys are not hooking up, especially on the dating apps. And a lot of women are hooking up left and right, which I'm not putting shade on that, more power to them. But it's the women that will keep saying hookup culture. Because why? Because women, have more options usually. Because more men want to have casual sex. Women don't have a danger in their supply of casual sex offers. So they will always have that. And so who do they want to have casual sex with? The alpha seed. So women have been able to use what's called hypergamy, right? Hypergamy, right? They now can choose whether they choose the beta, they can choose him, or they can choose the hot guy at the foam cannon party, as Rolo says, right? The guy that they want to bang right away, the alpha seed, right? They are now choosing that guy more because they don't need the resources like they used to. Number one, you have the state that will provide for them. You had ex-husband beta that's providing for them, or they'll have their own job and their own education, because that's accepted now. That's encouraged a lot of times, and that's what women are doing. So it's not shamed anymore. So for women to be outside the home working, so they don't need the beta bucks anymore. So that's why I say it's more important now than ever, and it will continue to be more important to be the alpha seed, in my opinion, right? And maybe I'll do another video on how to actually be alpha seed or whatever. But for now, we'll just go with the criminal case. So the criminal case we are looking at today is the Megan Jackson case. Megan Jackson was a young lady that was in South Carolina, and she was married to Greg Rice, and they had 4 children. And again, this one, the timeline, I'm not as knowledgeable about it. Just they didn't seem to give a good timeline, right? So, but it's not the close details of the story that we need. What date did that happen? No. Or what city was or county was that? And the population of that county, what is it? No, we don't need to know that. We need to know what lessons need to be learned here, what behaviors need to be avoided, and what behaviors need to be reinforced. So that's why we're talking about this case. So anyway, so she was married to Greg Rice, and she's I believe she's an attractive white girl, about mid-30s, she I guess at some point, back up. Well, she's living with Greg Rice and their 4 kids. They weren't married. Obviously, they don't have the same last name. And their kids ranged in age, I think from like 19, as the trial was going on, 19 down to, I don't know, 4 or 5, but I could be wrong on that. But anyway, she's got a full house. So, and Greg, once again, he was described as an awesome father. And the co-conspirator in his murder, her sexual affair partner, Megan's sexual affair partner, after, and we'll get into more to it, but after, spoiler alert, after he dumps Greg's body into a river, he's sitting around and talking to the kids, and they asked him, how did the kids talk about Greg? And they said, and the guy said, I would like to be talked about by my kids. So obviously they loved their father. He was a great father. And he was described by the prosecutor as a homebody, that just liked to go to work, come home, and chill. That was Greg. Just nobody giving nobody any trouble. And a father that was dearly loved by his kids. And going further on that, I will say, I got to see one of his kids. I think her name was Savannah. I think she is the oldest. I think she's 19. That girl is a rock star, because, and this was emotional during the trial, because she gets up there and think of the emotion she has to go through. Her father was killed by her mom, and allegedly, and she was convicted of it, but this is during the trial for her mom, and she has to testify against her mother, who's the only mom she's ever known. And her father has recently passed in this horrible, tragic way, and she has to testify against her mom, basically. and she was shaking like a leaf, and she was having a hard time. And the prosecutor was trying to be as nice as she could, just to, and was actually saying, "Do you want to step down and not go through with this?" And in my head, I'm like, "Come on, girl, get justice for your mom, your dad, man." And she did. She wanted to do it for her father. Look at that. The love she had for her dad, shaking like a leaf, scared to death. But her father was such a good man to her that she endured. And that girl was a soldier, man. Gotta honor her, man. That was awesome. If you ever get a chance to, you want to get emotional, watch that, man, or need some motivation, or think your day's tough, look at what she had to go through. But anyway, moving right along. Well, I will step back a little bit on that girl, Savannah, while she was testifying. And, one of the things she did say, which is kind of nasty, is that she heard her mom and the sexual affair partner, they were having sex one day, and I don't know if she said multiple times, but the point is they were having sex a lot, often and loud, apparently. So, but that happens. Alpha seed tends to, he gets the best of a woman, and that I'm not talking about nothing about morality with kids around. I don't want to talk, but my point is a lot of marriages are sexless while the wife or girlfriend has this, salacious affair, and that's it seems like that was going on here. So Megan works for a body transport company. So they go to scenes where people have passed, either by accident or by natural causes or whatever, and she transports the body from the scene to the coroner's office. That's her job, right? And she drives around in a little Honda minivan that they give her, and that's what she does. But her sexual affair partner is a deputy coroner, and his name is Chris Dontelle. He ends up working he didn't really work a deal with the state. He was hoping to get leniency, and he testified against her. So, so they work together at all hours of the day. And they get called out. Christopher Dontelle's married. Megan knows this. Once again, I say, if a woman wants you and likes you, she won't care that you're married. So, it's just what it is. If you're alpha seed, she does not care that you're married. She wants you bad enough. So anyway, they start working together. He used to do what she did. Chris Dontelle used to do what Megan did. And, like I said, they work close together. And apparently, a sexual affair starts, right? But what is key about the sexual affair, isn't that nice? People come here all the time doing pictures for like college and weddings, and right here, it's a nice place to do it. But got the bayou over here where they had the alleged serial killer, which is not true, but anyway, people like that view. It's a good view. Doesn't do justice on camera, but anyway, continue. So like I said, but the important point is, Megan Jackson, she, apparently Chris Dontelle went to this local bar, restaurant place, and he was a regular there. And he wasn't aware that Megan liked him until and this is what women will do, they'll start frequenting or showing up in your vicinity. And so that's what she started doing. So she became more of a regular at this place than he did. And here comes Chris, and oh man, here she is. She's hanging out too, right? So, like I said, women will chase the men they like. Women will chase the men they have desire for. They will say they don't, but that's just because, they don't want the beta males to know that the beta males start to chase them and take them to dinner, But the alphas, they will chase. And so this is, showing in this criminal case, she was chasing him, right? And so apparently, and they will get what they want. If they want it bad enough, women will do that. So in this case, it shows it too, because like I said, they're going to this bar, and she's frequenting a lot, and she's drinking a lot or whatever. And they said, when was your first, sexual interaction with her? And he says, well, one night she gets me in the, from the bar, tells me to come outside. She talked to me outside. They go in the car, and they go in this dark place in the parking lot. That's what he kind of describes. And he says that she asked him, have you ever cheated on your wife? And he says, no. And she says, well, you're about to now. And she starts kissing him. Now, he claims that, oh, you pushed her off and whatever. But, let's just say he didn't have a problem after that. So, but that intensity, the woman says, oh, you about to now. So, cue the porn music, right? Or corn music, whatever. But anyway, but that's what they'll do. If they want you bad enough, that's how they act. That's why you gotta be that guy. You gotta have that mindset, the alpha mindset, that dominance, that assertiveness, the goal-driven, ambitious. Know who you are. Okay, I keep saying it, but anyway. Chris Dontelle and Megan Jackson start working together. They start having a sexual affair. And as far as Greg Rice's role, he doesn't, well, what do I say? What will women use as manipulation? She alleges and doesn't care that she's ruining, Greg Rice's reputation. But she claims that he's kind of a drug addict, which he's not. And that's why she says he went missing. And he, not only was a drug addict, he, he was like a party animal, but he wasn't. He was a homebody, But what else did he do? He abused her. And she would tell her sexual affair partner to get sympathy and to get him to do stuff for her. She would say, here comes the storm. It's coming. He's mad again. Here comes the storm. And the prosecutor asked almost every witness in the case that knew, including her co-conspirator, did you ever see any, signs of, abuse, signs of, nope, everybody, nope. So it was just what she said. That's how you knew. Because everyone was like, yeah, he was an abuser. And then the prosecutor would ask, how do you know? Well, that's what she said. So, and that's kind of sometimes like, if someone says, how do you know? And you're like, is it because they told you? Who else told you? Just them. Did you see any evidence? No. So, once again, a woman using the abuse card, and we're not discounting, nobody needs to be abused. Nobody. Abuse is wrong, and we denigrate that, and people who do abuse need to be dealt with properly and on the right scale, right? So anyway, but we also need to, acknowledge the fact that is a tool for manipulation. So moving on, so Megan and Chris are rolling around all hours of the night. Chris is married to a sweet little lady, a school teacher. And then at some point, Megan and Greg separate. Greg lives in an apartment complex right in the neighborhood of his wife, and she inherits money, and she gets a home in the same neighborhood as her sexual affair partner. And again, women go after what they want. She's basically following this guy around, right? But what she also does is she's a master manipulator. She befriends the wife, hiding in plain sight, right? And because she inherited money, she gets a nice home in that neighborhood. Within 2 minutes of walking, she can get to their house, right? And she starts engaging with the family, and she starts buying them things, and she starts, buying them groceries, and she becomes Chris Dontelle's wife's best friend. And so anyway, and obviously that was, a tragic betrayal once, the wife hears about this. So they're going on doing their business. I don't know how long the affair actually goes on, but it's not important. Obviously, they're having one. And at some point, it doesn't even say why. There's no catalyst for why she's going to do what she's going to do. But Megan tells her sexual affair partner that she is going to go see Greg or whatever. And because he's abusive, she needs his help, right? And this is his story too, so we don't know. I'm sure he was trying to put himself in the best light. So, but mostly what he told was the truth, because he wanted to get leniency. So anyway, he said that, when what they found was Chris and her went shooting at some nature preserve, they called it, And they're all on surveillance camera. They go shooting the night prior to Greg Rice's death, and then they go off to a restaurant. They're seen at some restaurant, the one they like to hang out at. Then they park their cars. They apparently go have sex or whatever, and they were having sex a lot, and so then apparently Megan decides that she needs to call Greg and go by Greg's house. Doesn't say really why, but she drives over there in her little body car with Chris Dontelle, the coroner. He's the deputy coroner of this county they're in. And he says that Greg comes out of the apartments, because she called him, hey, come meet me outside. Says, they always met outside. So he's walking in the street, and Chris Dontelle's driving, and he approaches Greg and Megan. Megan's on the passenger side, and Greg approaches because that's his, the mother of his 4 children, and he's like, hey, what's up, I guess. And Megan gets out and just pop, 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 pop. Just shoot. They didn't say, how many times, but he said numerous, and he was DOA right there. And since they have the body car, Greg and Megan pick him up right there. They put him in the body car, and they take him over to a funeral home. That because, and I'm being facetious, but, good thing he's a coroner and has a place to put people, and really I'm being facetious. That's ridiculous what they're doing. So, so they take him and they place him in a funeral home and in one of the coolers, and they have, put on hold under investigation, so now they can kind of finagle the system that way. So, and then Megan, and let me back up just a little bit to kind of put some context. Megan was not only, manipulating Chris, she was also trying to manipulate his wife. And, females are master manipulators, like I say. And she was, and one reason that Chris Dontelle could have motive for this, Megan's sexual affair partner, is because he believed Greg Rice was trying to out him and notify his wife of the affair. His wife got several text messages from an anonymous number, and there were messages like, your wife's having a, basically, letting her know, hey, your husband's, messing around on you. And so Chris Dontelle was able to kind of thwart those, and that's crazy. I don't know why, and why they're sending those messages. But she said to Chris, those were coming from her ex-baby daddy. And so Chris was probably pissed off, right? And so she knew she was trying to get him pissed, right? And then, so since the text messages weren't working, she ends up sending a box full of pictures. She made big collages of her and Chris at places, and, basically screenshots of text messages, probably racy text messages they sent. And the wife was supposed to get that, but I believe Dontelle intercepted that. But see, it really doesn't matter if the wife got it because Chris already, her job was done, and it was to piss off Chris. I think that was the idea, and to break up the marriage, right? So that's why Chris Dontelle could have had some motive to complete the murder, but I don't know. He claims that he just bebopping around, and they go so they have Greg. They put him in the cooler, and they go back home and they chill, and then so they got the next day. They got to do something, because otherwise someone's going to find this. They can't keep it here forever. So, and Megan has already made the missing persons report. She's called the police for a welfare check. She's trying to act like, oh my God, I'm so worried. Once again, manipulation, right? So she tells Chris, her sexual affair partner, that he needs to get rid of the body. So he goes to Lowe's, and they have him on video, and he goes and gets a body dump kit. Basically, he gets a tarp. Maybe 2, if you ever hear tarp, you think of body dumping. He gets cinder blocks. This is all at Lowe's. This is on his receipt. He gets zip ties. What else did he get? Usually bleach is on there. So anyway, he gets zip ties. clamps or something. Like I said, cinder blocks and the tarps, and he puts it on like some stretcher or some crap, I don't know, but something sturdy that can, tie a body to it. And he takes his coroner van or Explorer, and he goes out to whatever river's out there in South Carolina, fairly big river, and he dumps the body. And that would have been a good idea had it not been found a month later by a cat fisherman. I guess they fish early in the morning. And so a lady's, catfishing, and she finds Greg Rice, floats up. And that's when they both become suspects. Obviously, they realize that they're having an affair. Their vehicles were captured on, they call license plate readers. They have them all around the country, but they're, stationary license plate readers. Their vehicles are seen kind of going to and from, Greg's apartment to, the funeral home. Their cell phone data, their cell phones are together the night of the murder. Greg's cell phone, the victim, his phone is with them up until the time it loses battery. They didn't realize, I guess probably in his pant pocket, and they didn't realize it in their haste to get away from their terrible crime. So yeah, they get arrested. They're put on bond, and they were told, they can't see each other. But they break that bond, and they start going to have a sexual affair again, and they, if the police find out, they get put back in jail. But there's that alpha seed side, that strong attraction, even the threat of revoking your bond, but that's the case. I mean, so many people, like, guys can't even get a date to, one or two. Oh, I don't want to go there. I got to drive 20 minutes, you need to come to my side of town, They don't, whatever. So, but when they really like you, that's why you don't put up with that. You don't put up with low interest. You don't put up with low effort, I mean, that does mean you'll probably have to talk to more women or go through more women, but do not go on dates with women that have low effort. So, because there's women out there that'll do what this lady's doing and what we've seen other ladies doing, right? And let me add to this. At one point during their sexual affair, she pays for a trip that they take to Jacksonville, Florida, and pays for, the whole thing. So, like I said, oh, you gotta make this much money, and you gotta have an eggplant this size, and I'm not gonna eat at the cheese factory. I'm better than that. I know my worth. Well, you don't have to hear all that. You have to hear all that when you're a simp beta. I hate to say it like that, but it just is, right? There's guys that, that know, and there's guys that don't. So just be in the guys that know category. So, but once again, they go to trial. I don't know what his final sentence was. I think he got a pretty hefty sentence, but he's looking to, I think it may have been a life sentence. And she got a life sentence too. But obviously he's going to be looking for leniency because he did divulge a lot of information during the trial. But basically the main idea of the story is that, once again, what do we see? There's somebody that's, your wife or whatever, your girlfriend's going to be having a sexual affair. She's having a sexual affair with somebody. He's getting the best of her. They're having lots of sex. They're having frequent sex. They're having intense sex, and, there's the poor victim. The awesome father, it's not to discount being an awesome father, but again, we see it. That's not what is valued, so you can be both. I think you can be both, but definitely don't think, we've talked about it before, and won't kick a dead horse, but again, when we talked about stepkids the other day, don't think your sacrifice to her stepkids is getting you more respect or getting her to desire you more. That's the hypergamy don't care. Shout out Rolla Tomasi, she doesn't care, that you adopted her two kids that, that weren't yours or whatever, hypergamy don't care. She wants, what, the one she gives her best to, in my opinion, is the alpha C guy. The one that his presence, his sexuality, his, the person he is has an effect on her, That's who gets the best of her, not the guy who takes care of her children, takes out her trash, does all her chores, does her dishes, and, marches for the March of Dimes with her, and simps for her in some some charity event or whatever that you didn't even want to go to, but she knows you're simping. She doesn't respect that guy. But anyway, not all. You got to say that these days. But yeah. So that once again, cautionary tale. The beta male, and I wouldn't even consider Greg a beta male or whatever. And this one doesn't, follow that typical. This guy's beta, this guy's alpha, whatever. But there does seem to be a little of that archetype. A lot of the same factors are there. Parenting, providing, protecting. Seems like Greg was doing that. It seemed like the sexual affair partner was getting the best of her. And when she doesn't respect you and doesn't care, she does. And again, we've talked about it doesn't have to be in your victimization or murder, but it could be in, like I said, her taking half of what you got. Her, getting custody of your kids, or her trying to, get the most out of the child support. That could be, like I said, that could be your death or whatever. When she doesn't respect you, when she doesn't desire you, and that would be sexually. And lastly, I'll talk about this and I'll end it. But in the Gerhardt case that's going on in Hawaii, attempted murder, the doctor or whatever, his wife was having an affair. Real quickly, his wife was having an affair, and he was trying to get her to end it. And one of the things he wanted was more intimacy. And he said, I need you to do it to me. And I get what he was trying to do, but he was trying to get her to do it, have sex with him every other day. Now, is that a terrible thing to ask? Is that out of the line? No, that's actually probably average, whatever. That would be a good marriage, especially after numerous years, right? Every other day. Good deal. Okay, whatever. But you cannot mandate that. And I've heard this before, guys have said, it's a woman's duty to have sex with a man in a marriage. It's her duty. If it's her duty and she's obligated to do it, shout out Rollo Tomasi, then she's going to feel compelled to do it. No woman wants to feel obligated. No one wants to feel like they're in a negotiation. And this is why marriage counseling doesn't work, because you're in there negotiating for her desire. And a woman doesn't negotiate, doesn't want to be, doesn't want her desire for a man in negotiation, because negotiated compliance is obligated compliance, right? And the woman doesn't want to feel obligated. And that isn't real sexy. You don't have too many rom-coms where they're like, okay, here's the calendar and we're going to do it too. That works through men's logic and reasoning. We're very logical, we're very rational. And yeah, we could be with a group of our friends. Yeah, Bill, that's a great idea. Yeah. You'll get her every other day. Just get her to agree to that, And but women don't operate on logic and reasoning, especially when it comes to their sexuality. No man, shout out Rollo Tomasi, has ever reasoned a woman into bed through logic and reason. They do it by getting into her mind and tapping into her emotions. So anyway, I think that's where we'll leave it. The Megan Jackson case, once again, a cautionary tale.